This is Beyond the Veil with Norman Meredith.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Norman Meredith with another episode of Beyond the Veil. And my co-host slash producer, Ed Lees, he'll be in the background occasionally doing his nice and interesting comments. All right, I apologize for being on the show as much as I should have. You know, it's summertime where everybody gets to enjoy the sun, fresh air, going out and do things. Well, for me, it's migraine season. And migraines are not a wonderful part of my life. They strike a lot of times, and if some of you know, I work in a very high-stress job, and occasionally that job causes my migraines, and I'm also dealing with some family things that are also causing some stress, which stress causes migraines. And I will ask, and I will continue to ask for a long period of time, please have in prayer individual that is close to me. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to say no more without giving too much away and getting my head slapped because I mentioned something I shouldn't have. So if you could, please keep this individual close to me in prayer. And tonight, you see my sign is a little bit closer. Well, there's a reason for that. While I was out sick with the migraine, Ed went ahead and redid our studio. So where I used to have a back wall is now one big giant room. So in the coming weeks, you might see me, instead of sitting here at the desk with headphones and a mic on, you might actually see me looking like Jabba the Hutt, sitting on a couch, talking in a wireless mic with the headset, talking to y'all, all spread out and fat looking. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm a little bit obese. I'm not a skinny, mean-looking machine like I used to be at 18 through 20s. You know, I kind of look like a mini Jabba the Hutt. But I'm trying to lose a little weight. So if you got any ideas on how I can do that, short of surgery, I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, tonight, folks, we're going to do a little talking about life on other planets, including a couple of moons and everything. See, recently, you know, it seems like every couple of months, somebody keeps stirring the pot, talking about life on these other planets. And the moons, they just keep that as a slow, steady thing going on, that we might have life in our own solar system, like on Europa and Enceladus. I think it's called. It's one of Saturn's moons. These are two moons within our solar system that have the possibility of having life, or at least the proteins or building blocks for life, if not primitive life, underneath the ice caps that are on there, because it is believed the oceans on these moons are warm enough, because of their cores by the planet, to promote and support life. Did you know that, Ed?
Sort of, kind of. There's always the conspiracy that's out there, you know. Mm-hmm. There's always something. And if it is life, what is life? And that leads to a whole plethora of geological, regularological, and theological onslaught discussions, let's say.
So
bordering on violent.
So here's the thing. What is life?
I think that's the age-old question. What is life?
Because abortionists and pro-lifers have this ongoing question about what life is. And I'm not going to go into the show for that purpose of what is life, because I don't want to be shot at, don't want to be firebombed, and I really don't want no harsh criticisms about what my views might be. So we're going to skip that. But an interesting fact, did you know there was an asteroid found in Antarctica with microbes on it? You follow my track so far? They're
panspermia. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. And do you know our former president,
which one?
Bill Clinton, said this asteroid had come from Mars. It was somehow ejected from Mars, and it had microscopic life on it. So technically, he said there was life on Mars. Do you remember that?
There's life on Mars.
Yes.
That's my best. Yeah, I'll get on camera. That's my best Bill Clinton I can possibly do right there.
Yeah, but yes, he actually come out on that.
Really?
He mentioned it. It was a small footnote. It's a small footnote in history that he talked about this asteroid that was found in Antarctica that had microscopic fossilized life on it.
So, not to say that it could have been an explosion from a volcano elsewhere sent over there.
Yep.
From Earth.
From Mars.
No, I'm saying from Earth. It's not like it could and then land somewhere, a ton away.
It could have.
I mean, we hit meteorites all the time, but I'm sure there's got to be some kind of, something else out there. It's got to be.
Well, supposedly the rock structure supposedly matched the structure and composition of Mars. And I'm using the word supposedly in quotes.
That's crazy because, I don't know. If you, like you said, you don't want to get into the abortion argument. But when you think about it, how can we say a piece of bacteria on Mars is life?
Yes.
But obvious fetus, small human in a human being is not life. It's just a clump of cells.
Exactly.
Well, even us older people close to our 50s and 60s, we're just a clump of cells too.
Yeah.
But there's a whole other argument. You want to talk about a can of worms? I think that's for the other show, Rants.
Yes.
I think that's something to talk about.
We've got that show be coming out here pretty soon. We've actually got some of the stuff already set up for it. I'll be setting up a web page on Facebook for it. We'll do something with some of the other sites. And Ed, I'm going to ask you, want to be my co-host?
I can probably do that.
And if I can get occasional Jackie in on this, she'll make it excellent.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. I know enough wacky people around here that you could probably have a built-in one who lives here in our area who would be here every single week to talk about it. Oh, yeah.
That might be fun.
I know some screwy dudes, man.
We
Would you prefer female or male?
Let's go female.
Okay.
Female would be... The reason I say female is to reach out to the audience more so than having three dudes sitting in an audience or trying to set up and do something. I think the female view is important to our listeners besides just two old dudes talking, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And even if we get younger views, those are always good things to go along as well.
Yeah, the topics are endless on something like that, but I digress.
That's okay. All right, now getting back to us saying, now we've talked about the possibility of life in our own solar system. Now, there are also, it seems like every quarter here, they keep stirring up the pot about life on other planets, and they call these things exoplanets. Now, majority of these planets, with the exception of one, are generally twice to 3 times the size of ours. The gravity's more huge, and it's phenomenal what they're coming across. Now, the top at the list so far is Kepler 2-18b. It's 124 light years from Earth. Now, the thing about Kepler 2 is it's a water world. It's 99% like Earth, except it's a water world. Now, this is a different Kepler.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. But this is another one of these worlds that they're talking about that's in a Goldilocks world, a Kepler planet, because it matches the size of this Kepler is supposed to be very similar to Earth, and it has some of the characteristics that might be the building blocks for life as well here as it is there. But that world's more of like, if I recall right, a desert-like biome. And so it's more supposedly, think Mars, but with Earth-like template. And that's what Kepler 1649c is. It's more of a desert world per se, but it does have water on it. So think Mars with water, does have some ice poles. And if you watch Dune, maybe something like that, for life.
I want to add, if it's got, looking at this one a little bit more closely, if it's got water, which, most places probably would, let's say, or ice because of its, distance from the sun in our solar system. And they also have, it's red like that. They can see it, which means there's got to be iron, but there also has to be some type of gas.
Correct.
Oxygen or nitrogen or some kind of air. So those are some, what's that called?
Precursors?
Yeah. It's, some evidence to the fact that it could be like a worn out Earth, you know, like it's totally used up type situation.
But, like I said, what Kepler going back to is there is one fringe group is saying there is life on there. The governments know about it, and that it's aquatic life forms that live there and have actually traveled from there to Earth and actually reside in our oceans. A lot of people are pushing for that right now, saying we have contact with an aquatic life form and they come from Kepler-2. Can you believe that?
Possibly.
Another one of them is TOL-733b, which is 245 light years from Earth. It's like 1.5 times bigger than us, and it almost looks like Earth. It's a very much Earth-like planet, except larger. The greens and so forth. Now, this one picture we're seeing here, this is Kepler 2-18b.
Okay.
This is the water world they're talking about.
I think I have the pictures out of order.
That's fine. We're no problem about that. We do what we got to do. So when you think water world, Kevin Costner's movie from back in 80s, 90s?
Possibly.
So a world covered with nothing but water. That is what Kepler is.
So what about this one right here?
All right,
This is the one you're talking about.
This is a rendition, I believe, of TOL-733b. It's got a lot of cloud cover. It makes me think Jupiter. But they say it's an Earth-like planet because it's right in the Goldilocks zone. It's got the right precursors in this atmosphere: oxygen, nitrogen, the temperature variation, tidal, axial tilt, things that would support life, and supposedly even carbon dioxide. It's showing up in these scans we're seeing with the oh Lord, my mind just froze on what the telescope is that looks at these things.
Hubble,
and infrared information telescopes are the infrared telescopes are using to look at these things to see the degrees that's going on here. Heck, one of these telescopes looked at one planet. We talked about it a while back here. And excuse me, I neglected to get the name, but we have a picture of it. It's tidally locked. One side is super hot and bright, and the other side is dark. It's on the dark side that every side, yes, this is a simulated picture of it, of showing lights just like this. This is the simulated dark side of this one planet they're talking about, where there's lights where they shouldn't be, which would assume there's a civilization there. Because your side facing the sun is internally hot, and the other side is dark, but there's lights. So either it's lava, or there's a civilization there that has somehow adapted and built possibly dome cities, or they've adapted to a darkness type life form. Bat people. Could you imagine meeting somebody else with a bat people? Large, that would be like the Greys, large black eyes so they could collect as much light as possible.
and the big old teeth.
Yeah. And all those possibilities. Now there's another planet. It's Kepler 452-b, and they call this Earth 2. And the reason they call this Earth 2 is it's the exact same size as Earth. Same makeup, very minor differences in gravitation, perfect placement in the Goldilocks zone. And back in the 90s, early 2000, there was a show called Earth 2. And it's just amazing that they're using the same nomenclature from a TV show for this. I wonder if somebody wasn't foreshadowing something.
Possible. They could have.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, a lot of times you notice in media, in the Hollywood, they foreshadow things, especially The Simpsons.
Yeah, The Simpsons, a bunch of prophets.
That's a show we got to do.
Let's do it.
We're going to have to do some looking at some of these so-called prophecies that The Simpsons have done, and talk about them and see which ones have actually come true.
Or could it be the Rothschilds and back in 1850 when they bought Reuters, and then Reuters bought all the newspapers, and whatever the Rothschilds wanted to talk about, they put out there, and it went out and disseminated through every newspaper in the world.
Of course. That's media control.
Set the narrative.
And supposedly the Democrats were doing something like that through USAID by paying paying money out of USA to certain publishing companies, but that's for another show. I'm sorry.
Sounds like a rant.
I'm letting my policy, my beliefs slide it, and I shouldn't be doing that. Not on this show. But what is your thoughts? Do you really believe that they're starting to let us know more about life on other planets and the possibility, and with the fact that we're still having UFO sightings in the New Jersey area and surrounding areas, with all these drone sightings of UFOs up there, talking about this, that they're not building up a narrative for first contact? What do you think about that, Ed?
Well, I actually saw a video here recently where a guy was chasing one of the drones that he saw.
Right.
Chased it all the way back to New Jersey, and it landed in a compound owned by Boeing. You know how I know it was Boeing? It had Boeing on the building. You could see them come in and out like it was a beehive with little bees coming in and going out. And
well, we have agreed that some of these aircraft up there may be government and privately owned corporations' drones up there to see what the other stuff is up there.
I don't know.
You know, that we've believed that some of that is what that is. You know, it's like everybody's up there looking to see what the other one's doing.
They just want to get ahead of the technological curve.
That too,
I suppose.
But, you know, it's just a combination of, okay, the aliens are up there doing something, and then the drones went up there to see what the aliens are doing, then somebody else sent something else up there to see what all they were doing, and it's a circle. You know? Everybody's up there trying to see who's doing what.
I've always been of the thought that, you know, back in the day when I used to think it was like aliens are just, they're humans, but they're from the future and they're coming back to see how they could have changed themselves back now so it would adjust them in time. It's an alien version of Back to the Future.
It's very possible. I've heard that theory.
Time travel.
I've heard that theory. Some come back as time travelers to see about making tweaks in time. Others come back to observe time. And others, like supposedly the Greys, are time travelers. They come back to get genetic material from in the past to help their present. Have you ever heard that one?
No.
Yeah. Supposedly Greys are time travelers, come back from their future to our past to get genetic material to save themselves because they're us.
That's nuts, man.
It's enough to keep a conspiracy theorist give them insomnia. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe that's why I can't sleep. Who knows? But, you know, it's just so many different things. Sometimes I just wish they'd open up and tell us the truth. Like Roswell, the crash in Missouri before Roswell, the Italian crash that happened just before World War II, the original first contact, all these other things that they've done that we know that has happened, but they won't tell us. But yet they'll let me, in a sense, let Hollywood tell us in a roundabout way to say, well, it's only Hollywood, it's make-believe. But how much do you know in lore? When you think about legends and mythology, there's always a grain of truth in anything you heard from legends and lore, correct?
Supposedly.
Yeah.
There could be a little bit.
True. So that's my thought for today. Just watch what's coming out in the news here in the coming weeks about what's being said, what's being done, and how things are changing. And as you see, my studio space is expanded courtesy of Ed and his minions.
Over here, lots of area, and that's going to be a really nifty spot.
So in the coming weeks, watch for changes.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to sign off from here tonight and tell you thanks for joining us once again, and thank you for putting up for my tardiness and absence. I apologize, but sometimes the medication I take doesn't always help, and all I can do is sleep, take a shower, try to relieve it, and sleep some more.
And you just have to wait.
So folks, bear with me, and in the coming weeks, look for the new show called Rants. I think maybe y'all like it. We're going to get down and dirty with some talks. And hopefully I won't get in trouble with my company I work for, because they are a public service provider, and sometimes they get funky about when their employees talk about subjects. So we'll see. All right, folks, signing off from South Carolina. This is me and my producer, Ed.
Hey.
We wish you all a good night and safe week.